All right. Thanks, Jenny. And while Rich covered the exciting work that's being done before the severe weather happens, this focuses on the work that we do after the event, the post-event web stories, the post-event information that we put out, and some of the work we've done to try to make that a little bit easier on the WFOs. So spearheaded by both myself, Todd Reek, and then Andrea Schottmer at Louisville. So, quick background for those of you who've been in the Weather Service for less than a decade. The current CMS templates that we have been utilizing in Central Region, we debuted back in the 2014-2015 season, and it was designed to try and develop a standardized template that we could use. And it was well received by partners, still widely used by the WFOs, and partners still appreciate the consistency and the information. But the fact of the matter is they're a decade old and they're showing their age a little bit. The original web pages had an interactive mapper that allowed you to put tornadoes on kind of a Google map interface, but it was really klutzy to use. And we actually ended up retiring it about 5 years ago because it didn't work with the updates to the CRH server. And quite frankly, the major complaint that WFOs and even myself have as a public information officer following an event is the redundancy with putting that information from the DAT and having to type that back into the CMS. It just takes forever, especially with big events. It just drags on and on. And there was work done a few years ago to explore story maps from Esri as a replacement. But the fact of the matter was, it really didn't save us much time having to create the stories from the templates and trying to build templates and then having to try and get those approved because there's an approval process for GIS information. And so we always had it in the back of our heads when we developed these templates a decade ago that we wanted to tie into the DAT at some point. And we were just looking for an avenue to try to make this as simple as possible for the forecasters, because quite frankly, we're still the jack of all trades and not everyone is fluent in the CMS. And we want to make this something as easy and bulletproof as possible, but still make it nice and worthwhile. And that opportunity presented itself late last year when there were some updates with Esri dashboards that allowed us to modify the dashboard URL parameters and allow us to create interactive maps on the fly. So we developed a dashboard, an Esri dashboard, that ties directly into the DAT database and allows us to change the date and the locations that are viewed within that URL stream. So we created one master dashboard that WFOs can then customize, again, the date and the bounding box to their event. And so really the biggest thing here was to save us the time with not having to re-enter that stat data into the CMS. It's tied directly into the DAT, the public DAT database, and it shows immediately as the information in the DAT is QC'd, and any updates that you make will instantly be reflected on this page. So you don't have to go back and edit the CMS page if you extend a track or change an EF rating. And this kills two birds with one stone in a way, because not only do you not need to do the web page work, but it also drives the need to accurately and completely fill out the DAT. So your work is now focused in the DAT rather than on the CMS web page. It allows for scalable viewing of all of the QC'd damage points, the polygons, the lines. We worked on trying to make the pop-up windows that you can click on a little bit more user-friendly. I know that when you view the data in the DAT, it gives you the kitchen sink with every possible piece of data you could want. And we tried to clean that up a little bit in this dashboard as well. In addition to this, we debuted a content creator. This was the work of our former ITO at Crosse, and is still maintained by Todd Reek, the forecaster at Crosse. And this content creator gives you the ability to view the layout of the page before creating the CMS code. I know beforehand, you just kind of had to choose your tabs and hope it kind of looked the way you wanted, and you had to hit Control-U to go through all that process to copy the code. And we tried to make that a bit simpler now. It's a drag and drop functionality for adding those tabs into the layout you see there, and you don't have to manually copy the HTML code directly. There's just a button that copies it for you, and then you just paste that directly into the CMS. So really neat, slick stuff. We also added information here for creating that URL for the dashboard. So the creator, once you input the bounding box and the date, it builds the URL for you and sticks it right in the tornado tab. And so we removed the fields, those previous maps and the tables that you used to have to fill out, and replaced it with this dashboard that's embedded directly in that tornado tab. Other more minor updates, since this page was debuted in 2014, obviously the EFU category has become more commonplace. And so we added that as a option on the key, and more information about what EFU means underneath the page at the bottom. I know some offices had already been doing that. We just added it directly into the creator. There is a caveat. I know some offices already know this, but the DAT actually doesn't support EFU lines and polygons yet. It only supports points. That's an issue that's being addressed outside of the scope of this with the DAT team and the severe weather program. So just a heads up that if you try to draw EFU lines, it may not work very well. Just the points work at this point. And again, this is where we put the information, the addition of the EFU in the scale at the bottom, and more information about what EFU means. With all that, we also moved the Google site that used to house the information, the links for the creator, and some older examples. We now nested that in a more appropriate place under the post-event resources page that Central Region created a few years back. So that's now just a standalone section within that called Storm Summaries. And in that, we developed a new interactive instructions for the web pages and how to create them, and direct links for the creator, CMS. We also created a resource page that we try to keep up to date with links for creating, say, radar loops or storm reports or anything else you want for your web pages. For those who still want to use the old one, or if something happens with the Esri dashboard that it somehow goes down, we do still have links, of course, to the original creator and the instructions. That hasn't gone away. So we try to maintain a backup system there that is still fully functional. So now we're going to go into the demonstration of how this all works. And, you know, I'm not on the Central Region network at this moment in time, so I made screen captures of the creator, and we'll just walk through the steps of how to do it. So this will be the creator when you first load it. You have two main panes. The left side is the design side. The right side is the preview side. So you can just start typing your text here at the top if you want an event summary. And the moment you start typing the text, it automatically starts to populate and updates in real time to show what your web page is going to look like. And there's still a little bit of some breaks in the what the page will not look like. Like, for example, the logos won't show up. The embedded images won't show up for some reason. But when you create the code and insert it into the CMS, those will work. So you can go through and start adding your text for the event. You can start clicking checkboxes if you want to add those side images underneath. And then you can go on and start typing the information that's going to go into that dashboard. And the information you're going to need is essentially your lower left bounding box and your upper right bounding box, your latitude and longitude coordinates. You can grab those from the DAT. There's an interactive readout there for your cursor there on the bottom left of the screen. You can do it from AWIPS using the D2D layout. My only suggestion here was keep the box rather tight. Don't just do your default CWA if you have just a small event in a corner, because this will drive what the map looks like. So if you have a big box, the track's going to look really, really small, and it's going to be hard for users to see. So customize that box to your particular event. The start and end dates are inclusive. So in this case, I just wanted to do the event from last May 21st. So I just made that both the start and the end date. And there's an option to do a CWA filter on the map. I'll show you an example of how this is all laid out. And use that with a little bit of caution, because the way the data is processed through the DAT, if you have any CWA crossing tracks and you choose the CWA button, those tracks won't show up on your page. It's just the way the data outputs the data, and it doesn't play nice with the dashboard. So use that with a bit of a caution. I tend to not use it at all because, frankly, the only people who care about CWAs are ourselves, and I prefer to show neighboring tracks if they're close to my bounding box, if possible. So then you can start dragging and dropping your tabs. Oh, sorry, you create the build, hit the build URL button, and it'll create the URL at the bottom that'll be stuck into your Tornado tab. So then what you can then do is take that tab and drag it over, and it'll start populating the track information. You see the dashboard then loads right away, and you can scroll down and you can see what it's built for you. So you can see the dashboard layout immediately in that preview and interact with it and kind of get a feeling for how it's going to look. And if you need to modify that URL, go back and change the go back and change the coordinates and rebuild that URL. And then you can go through and drag and drop the tabs. And you'll notice there's a bit of a lag sometimes. Sometimes the tab won't show up when you drag it over. That's a bug. Just slightly tap it again with your mouse and move it back and forth, and it'll start showing up. You can see that bug happens again. Just kind of click it again with your mouse real quick, and it'll show up again. And again, just drag and drop the tabs. You'll see, you know, as you drag over, sometimes they won't show up, sometimes they will. It's just a small bug, but you know, they do show up, and move it around. And you can drag and sort them as you wish here. So it's nice and customizable there for building your page and showing how it will look. And you can then click and see how the tabs will look and see what the content will view when you dump it into the CMS. And there's one last tab you can do. It's the extra tab. You can then name it to whatever you want, you know, make it whatever you feel like. And then that will reflect, that'll show up into your code as well at the end there. And you can build a tab again for whatever extra information you want that's not pre-built. And so then once you get into the CMS, you hit that, oh, sorry, on the last page, you hit the copy text, the copy HTML button on the top. You hit that copy HTML to clipboard. When you're done with your tab and you want to copy it over to the CMS. So you can go to the CMS, enter your event information on the page name, the HTML title tag like you've always done in the past, and then click that source button here to get to the source code. You then paste the HTML in, and then when you click the source code back off, you can then see the page and how it will look like. And it'll look very similar to what it did before. The tab interface is still there, and you can then see again those images loaded, and you can scroll down and then edit the page as you see fit. And again, you can see those placeholders that are put there. They'll have to fill those in. And then once you save the page, you can then, once you save it, scroll down and see more of a live preview of what the page looks like with those tabs and the dashboard. So you can see that all show up very quickly. It's embedded right within the CMS right there. So let's see what else I got here. So now we'll show what the web page actually looks like. We'll go to the demo page here. Oops, there we go. So here is just a demo page that I made with the dashboard to show how the page looks and how its features. So you'll notice at the top, there's a little interactive placeholder here for how to use the map. And we put that there just for those who haven't seen this before. It's collapsible, so it doesn't take up any extra space on the page. And there's information there of how to use it, how to interact with the map and so forth. And users can, again, expand and contract this. There's a note here. This is one of the biggest caveats or bugs that we've identified so far with the map or this dashboard is that the way the information is coded in the DAT, it's coded in GMT, and then from there we can then customize the time zones it just shows from there. But in the dashboard doesn't know what time zone it's supposed to be in, and so we debated to create multiple multiple dashboards set for different time zones. In the end, we decided that we created one dashboard that uses your device's time zone to show the times here. So that's one of the biggest things to remember here is that all the times here are going to be shown in whatever time zone your computer or your smartphone is located in. But again, it's pretty basic. You have your table at the top, which is pre-populated with the DAT data. Again, it shows start time, end time, EF scale, length, and width. So much of the same information that you would have gotten from the original text boxes or tables that we had on the old CMS pages. And then below it is the map. And again, we're limited by the size restrictions of the CMS page, so we couldn't make this full screen as much as we would have wished to. So we tried to build this within the CMS framework, but you do have the ability. You'll notice this table is only limited to 8 lines, and that's a function of the dashboard to make it a single dashboard. It doesn't resize itself. It's stuck at 8 lines. But you can make it larger by clicking the small button here at the top, so you can see the table expand and you can contract it. Same thing with the map. Using this top right button, you can click it to enlarge the map, or once again, make it smaller to see the link or to see the table at the top. And then you can click each one of these tracks to zoom into it. And then from there, it pops up with more information, again, that we have, like we have in the old layout with the summary of the track, injuries, fatalities, and so forth. And then you can close that and interact with the map, move around and so forth. You can move over to different tracks and zoom into these tracks. You can see those polygons starting to show up and so forth. Now, there is a newer issue that cropped up here in the last couple of weeks where sometimes it takes about 30 seconds to get this information to show up when you zoom into a map. That's something that, there it goes, now it finally loaded in here. It's something that the way Esri is processing this data from the DAT, and we're working on trying to find a more responsive data source from the DAT, but it does eventually load, and the overview maps look pretty good still. Again, you can zoom in here and see the lines and the polygons. You can click each of the points, and it will show comments, so the data entry, and if you have photos, let me go find one that has a picture with it. The pictures are also shown here, and you can click those, and they show up on new tabs, so people can view the photos from the event. Again, really nice, really responsive once it loads here, and you can go between the tracks, and you can see, again, the various information that you would have had. So a really neat, slick interface here. Again, trying to think of what else is neat about this. It's really just a time saver for us at the WFO, and I think a lot of partners will appreciate this interactive function. There's also, we included instructions at the top for how to download the data. This button just links directly to the public DAT interface. And there's also instructions that we made in a PDF format that shows how people can go through the public DAT and download the data by choosing their area of interest and then downloading the data from there. I think that's about it on my end for a demo of the page. Again, a lot of information here has moved to the storm summaries page, and there's new instructions for how to create these pages. They included embedded videos to show how we go about entering the information. So pretty slick. Hopefully this is an improvement over the old instructions that we had out there. There's links to the dashboard and how to create it. Of course, we included the list of the known caveats because there's a fair number of them. Hopefully, a lot of them are very small, but still things to be aware of. So if you encounter any issues, hopefully go back to this and see if we've documented this and how to work around it. But the goal was to create something simple and usable for the offices. We had to take a few shortcuts to do it, but hopefully this saves you a bunch of time in the post-event process. And if you have any questions, now's the time to ask them. Otherwise, I'll cede the floor to Jenny.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kevin. If you do have questions, please raise your hand or type them in the chat box. And I can definitely see this has really good applications for mutual aid as well. If that was something that another office was maybe helping you with, this would really streamline the process. So really appreciate you presenting this.
Yeah, and I saw Central Illinois was the first office to use it. We updated the pages a few weeks ago, and Central Illinois was the first one to try it out. So if they're on the call and wanted to provide any feedback for how this all worked out, I'm more than ears to hear what you guys thought.
Awesome. Glad to hear that it's being used too. I don't see any comments or questions. And if you do have some later, I'm sure you could follow up with Kevin.